Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Animal-Based Dad podcast. This is the show where between my guest interviews with subject matter experts and topic-specific deep dives, the aim is to arm you with actionable insights and information on how to prioritize your metabolic health and improve your overall health and well-being. Hey everyone. So in today's show, I sit down with the fantastic Amanda King, the metabolic nutritionist, and her partner in their new venture, the fantastic Dr. Harry Kuhan. Now, Amanda and Harry have recently published a new book called Metabolic Drugs for Cancer, and that is the subject of the discussion in today's episode. I talked to Amanda and Harry about their book, about what it means, what it's aimed for, and we get into some of the nuance around the metabolic theory of cancer and the use of off-label drugs in the treatment of cancer as an adjunct to traditional modalities of treatment. It's a really fantastic episode, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. But before we get into that, I just want to take a second to say, if you're a new viewer to this podcast, I want to just welcome you. I appreciate your view, and I hope that you find the discussion interesting, engaging. I would also like to say that if you're a returning viewer to my podcast, I owe you an apology and a bit of an explanation. It's obviously been a couple of months since I last published an episode, and I just want to say that I've been incredibly busy getting tiresome technologies built up and off the ground. We're about to launch our crowdfunding campaign to develop and then launch our ecosystem of products that will really bring the brilliance and benefit of top-tier metabolic health coaching to the general public. The campaign description or the campaign link is in the video description below. I'd like you to have a look at that. It does a really great job of unpacking what we're doing, who we are, my four co-founders and I, and what we're aiming to do with this crowdfunding campaign and with this new technology that we're developing. We're at the very forefront of the integration of artificial intelligence and metabolic health coaching, and we're developing something that doesn't quite exist yet in health and wellness space. So please do have a look at that crowdfunding page. If it resonates with you, if it seems like something that you believe in and want to get behind, we would love to have you as part of our backing community. We have some fantastic reward tiers for our 3 backing tiers. The rewards are genuine. They have been well thought through. They are sort of built around the intellectual property, the knowledge and experience of my founding team and myself, giving back to you for your belief in us and your backing and helping us to get going. So please do follow that link, have a look at the crowdfunding page. And if it does resonate with you and you would like to support us, we'd love to have you on board. With that said, please enjoy today's episode. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Animal-Based Dad podcast. I'm your host, Ricky du Plessis, and I have got 2 very special guests today who are going to be talking to us about their upcoming new book, which I think is probably controversial to people who aren't familiar with the concepts, but is hugely beneficial to people who understand what they're doing. And the proof is in the pudding. They're already helping people. I'm connected with some of the people that they're helping, and there's just no denying that it's incredibly powerful. So I'm excited for this conversation. Amanda King, Dr. Harry Kuhan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Right. So Amanda, you've been on the podcast before, so I'll give you the option of either doing a quick background or not. I'm happy to refer the viewers back to the episode that we've already done if you'd prefer that.
I can go ahead. Things have evolved since we last spoke a little, so I'm quite happy to redo that. I'm Amanda King. I am a nutritional therapist, a naturopathic practitioner. I specialize in integrative oncology, and with Dr. Harry, we've just co-authored a book called Metabolic Drugs for Cancer. I'm the author of the Substack, The Metabolic Nutritionist, which has over 30,000 subscribers. And I have been writing regularly about metabolic drugs for cancer specifically. And over the next coming year, we're I'll be writing a lot about supplements for cancer as well, and all from a metabolic approach. And that's me. I run a private online health clinic and work with people at all stages of cancer.
Awesome. Brilliant. Dr. Harry?
Yeah, thanks, Ricky. So I trained in medical oncology conventionally, but sort of pursued some research in metabolic attacks using repurposed medicines, integrative therapies such as high-dose vitamin C in pancreatic cancer, funded by Stand Up to Cancer. In my journey, I sort of evolved a little bit more and sort of wanted to pursue that angle of attack, really trying to complement conventional treatment strategies, chemo, radiotherapy, immunotherapy, targeted drugs, with sort of other techniques. Obviously we'll probably delve into metabolic health in general, of course, as well. But I pursued a sort of this angle. I guess I'm in a bit of a niche where I try and focus on metabolic oncology, if that's a kind of an emerging term, an emerging label, not maybe well defined in the conventional sense. But I started a clinic with my co-founder, Raf, called Lucio Health, which looks to again tailor making plans, for the individual cancer and circumstance to try and aim for better. So I provide sort of counselling services, integrative oncology sort of discussions, repurposed medicine sort of considerations via telemedicine as well. And so I've grown to sort of appreciate the role, of course, and try and blend conventional with what the label non-conventional. And of course, I've collaborated with Amanda specifically over the last couple of years. And that's kind of me to say.
Superb, superb. So there's a lot to unpack there. I suppose the starting point, just thinking of it from the viewer's perspective, is metabolic drugs for cancer. So we're talking repurposed drugs, so off-label use. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so certainly that's aspect of it. Yeah, absolutely. As you know, I guess we're becoming more aware of the term, the hallmarks of cancer. The clever scientists over the years have sort of done a root cause analysis, looking at why, how do these things do what they do? We talk of cell signaling, we talk of metabolism, we talk of the immune system, we talk of autophagy, inflammation, angiogenesis. So really trying to, I guess, nail down, method from the science and awareness of these sort of attributes. How do we play on those? How do we use those to our advantage? A useful way to strategize is knowing the enemy. As opposed to the whack-a-mole kind of, sensation people kind of feel they're on, the conveyor belt sort of journey. And I guess, all of those those factors, lifestyle, nutrition, stress, sleep cycle, things we are very familiar with our discussions, aren't often considered. And so trying to endeavor to kind of make this a forefront of conversation to empower patients to do more for themselves is ultimately what we're seeing in terms of the positive signals, the better outcomes, progression-free survival, overall survival, management of symptoms. And repurposed medicines, I guess, is just one aspect of it. And being the biased doctor who loves prescribing medicines, I had a natural affinity to sort of, I guess, delving down that research route, having a bit more of an awareness, a confidence around side effects, interaction potential, that kind of, those assets obviously needed for monitoring in the community when applying an adjunctive protocol. But the idea of the metabolic approach, as you know, an umbrella term for all of these different things. I think this is where we're seeing the positive success stories come about time and time again.
Awesome. The other thing that you've touched on there, which I think is absolutely brilliant, and I want to get this out right at the start, is you've mentioned adjunct and you've mentioned it's alongside conventional treatments. And that's important because people become very tribal, especially online. And people tend to think in extremes, and everyone sort of wants to put this down into, does it replace chemo, radiotherapy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And then the arguments become skewed. But what you're saying is it's alongside as a supporting intervention rather than something that replaces the traditional standard of care. Yeah.
Exactly.
That is exactly right. This is we're both always viewing this from an integrative perspective. We want to integrate everything. It's not about a war between ideologies or sides. It's about what is actually going to get the best results for the individual who needs that kind of support. And when we look at some of the drugs that we've talked about in the book, we've specifically mentioned areas where the research has shown a synergy with conventional treatment. So, for example, the synergy between ivermectin and chemotherapy, how ivermectin might prevent MDR, so chemo resistance, or niclosamide, how that actually helps to potentiate radiation, radiotherapy, and actually, it actually makes the attack, if you like, have a bigger impact on cancer cells than standalone. So it's really important, and we've really tried to address that for the benefit of everybody.
Nice. So
and you're quite right. I mean, sorry, Karen.
No, I was just going to say, so I like the way you framed that there, man, because when people think metabolic therapies or metabolic interventions, they think about feeding metabolism, right? So I would understand that initially as being ways to starve the cancer cells, which I'm sure it is, and it does play a part. But you've said there that you've also got stuff that potentially enhances or augments the traditional approaches and traditional treatments and makes them more effective. So it's not just about starving out the cancer cell, which you obviously want to do. It's also about finding ways to improve the effectiveness of other treatments.
Yeah.
Exactly that. And this is the thing that you said. I love the way you put that. It does become very. You notice the tribal nature of the two sides to the coin, and what we're trying to say. And I always admit that there's shade thrown on from either side. Of course there is. But what we're trying to say is, look, this is the age-old thing. I mean, when you do delve into research, the lab-based kind of research, preclinical work, most of the doctors will admit that there can often be difficult translating from the things you see in the petri dish experiments to the real world.
Yeah.
But this research works. You start somewhere, you get some smoke signals of success. You might garner some traction to try and do an early phase trial or retrospective reviews looking back in time at large swathes of data of populations, statistical analyses. But this is the thing. I mean, there's this issue, of course, with the emergence of new drugs, precision medicine strategies, pharma-backed trials where there's obviously a lot of money. But not much interest in repurposing medicines that are already there, things that we have been around for decades, generations. And so trying to triangulate all that data and capture those that maybe hierarchically move to the top of the pile, and then assess logistics, logistically plausible drugs that are relatively safe in the context of the individual patient and what they're receiving. There are these tools, and Amanda name dropped a few, ivermectin, niclosamide. Let's go to one of the most common ones, metformin. Metabolic syndrome. I'll go one further. Metabolic syndrome, the umbrella term, biohacking, trying to improve, fight against aging. All of these things. So much overlap in this scene, in this space. But that is hard to ignore. But I think the issue is, and we speak of this a lot, the sort of conservative culture in prescribing in the conventional sense, or a fear of trying to maybe do a little bit more outside the remit of the nice guidance, a little bit against us, So there are many fronts to fight, this kind of battle, if you like, to try and allow easier access, more of a conversation, less confrontation. Sure.
That's brilliant. And for me, it underpins how central metabolism is to health. Because, I mean, we'll all agree it's the fundamental central pathway for anything in the body. Like anything that happens has to happen via your metabolism, because stuff has to get into cells and out of cells, and cells need it to function. But explaining that to laymen, how would you deliver that message? What is it about the book that has allowed you to unpack that in a way that is accessible?
I think that this, in a way, has it's been a journey of certainly for me, where I've done some parts of the writing. It's been a journey of understanding, and I feel like through going into the research, I've almost been the reader with the story unfolding before me. So it's been it's been a really wonderful, eye-opening, interesting dig into what research is available. And I don't have a research background. I'm a lowly nutritional therapist. I'm a naturopath, and this is the path that you know I've kind of put myself on. And so and I'm not a medical doctor either. So I've been able to my part in this book has been in putting the information in a way that is accessible to everybody and kind of creating stories, which is what I love to do. I love to write, so creating stories around it and trying to explain where I know that 3-4 years ago I would have needed these kinds of things to be unpacked and not assume that I would have known what a lysosome was or what a peroxisome was, just down to the basic biology of things. So then it becomes a book which is equally applicable to the public who are interested, have a little bit of background in biology or a special interest. If you have an unfortunate diagnosis of cancer, you're very interested and you definitely want to know why, you know, what you can do about your AKT mutation or, you know, some other thing that you are aware of that is particular to your cancer. Then maybe you found it out on a next generation sequencing test or something like that. You want to know what you can do about that. But equally, it should be not only accessible for the public, but also for other practitioners as well who may not have expertise in this area yet and want to know more about it. So the Kindle version is also available. Harry and I will both have a copy of a downloadable PDF on our websites, which is fully searchable. Nice to have a hard copy of the book, but also if you've got the PDF file and you want to search under breast cancer, it's fully referenced. All of the references are in chapter format, so you don't need to go through each number. It's very, very easy to access, and anybody should be able to go in and get access to that data at any stage of education, I hope.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. So I like that. I like that you've effectively got two versions here. You've got a book, right? And then you've also got something that's a bit more of a clinical tool to support practitioners.
I hope so.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's a really good spin. I like that. The AI sort of developer in me is spinning in my head, and I'm going, well, we've got to integrate some AI there and make it really, really futuristic and user friendly, where you can almost enable a conversation between the practitioner and the AI, and it goes off and fetches the relevant information and presents it back to the practitioner. It just takes that element of manual search out of it. But that's conversation for a different day.
I think that's absolutely, you know, it's true. We must admit, you know, this is exactly the way it's going, and that's why, you know, the odd patient I'll have, you'll hear feedback from saying they tried to engage with their overseeing oncologists about some of the ideas, and the oncologist will not want to engage, or not all the time, but more often than not.
Yeah.
And might say, look, I don't know about this. In a way, it's kind of an excuse, because these days, how can you not know about it? If you don't know something, you look it up. And before, we still had that facility to look up PubMed searches, but now we've got AI to say, what's the data on X, Y, and Z? What's the data of the ketogenic diet in glioblastoma, for example? Not to create a segue, but you know, it is, you know, it's there, it's accessible. It's certainly a tool, an asset for me. As a physician going forward, I don't profess to know everything. And I often would say, you know, I often learn something new from a patient every single day. They ask me about a supplement or a paper or a clinical trial that they've been made aware of. And then now I can go off down, you know, I can do a quick search and I can empower somebody else. I can say, oh, with this cancer, there's this trial. What about this? And maybe you should read about this, and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we must admit that it is a key tool for information access. And, you know, obviously it's a blessing and a curse. All these things can often be a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
But we live in the age of information where it's our duty to kind of learn how to process it to some degree in all aspects of life. And we should use it to our advantage.
Yeah, 100%. So in the book, we're talking about the off-label use of drugs to serve as an adjunct to cancer therapies. Mm-hmm. How are you mapping that out? Are you mapping it to specific cancers and understanding the metabolic pathways involved and what the drugs actually do to either augment the existing treatment or to add a layer of defense against the cancer cell? from a layman's perspective. Have you got that all mapped out? How's that sort of come together? Because that I find fascinating.
Do you want to answer that, Harry, or shall I?
Well, you go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, you carry on, Amanda.
Okay, fine. So I would say, yeah, I mean, what we've tried to do is, first of all, it's kind of in, there is a sort of structure to each individual repurposed drug. So first of all, we have created a kind of almost like a backstory. So there's the story. Sometimes there's genuinely a backstory when it comes to the way that it's been, like a little bit of history about the drug, or how it came to be, or whether it's a generic, or whether it's how it's being, with GLP-1s, for example, as an off-label drug. There's quite a lot of story around this at the moment, and a lot of information. Is quite interesting to understand the background. And then we go into the mechanisms, so how it works in the body, what the mode of action is, what kind of pathways we know that it acts on specifically, and that leads us quite nicely into which cancers it's known to work best for. And we haven't just done that, we've both been able to also, to the best of the research that's available, and we've gone right up to the very best available research to the point of publishing. So it hasn't just been 2-3 years ago, 5 years ago. We've kept the data current. So that's a really nice sort of thing about this book, is it's very current. And so what we've done is also, where you might, and this is happening all the time, where you might have seen in other literature that perhaps a certain drug was great for this kind of cancer, more research might have shown that actually we need to exercise caution. You'll see as you read through the book, oh, there's mixed or equivocal data. That means that we don't have enough to make real judgments, or we need to be a bit more cautious around administering that particular drug in this scenario. And I think it's honest. We haven't written a book that's saying everybody jump on this bandwagon, these drugs are great, you don't want to, we're actually saying, well, it can be good in this situation according to this research, but actually it might not be good for this person. So it's actually, we've tried to get a very honest take on this.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I mean, basically, I think the way we approached this when we were brainstorming initially were just from the conversations we've been having over the past couple of years, which drugs seem to be the most relevant, which ones seem to be coming up the most.
Yeah.
Research point of view, from a patient inquisition point of view, and sort of that clinical experience point of view as well. And so we wanted to tackle this from the drug approach, so as Amanda was laying out, start with the drugs that maybe hit the top, 10 or so. We'd like to in the future do a series that are more dedicated to the individual cancers, as sort of books. Let's do something on breast cancer. Let's do something, et cetera, right? So we just thought this should be a great start, because you get a feel for this when you work in this field. You're kind of on the front line of these conversations, right? Yeah. So there's Facebook forums and whatnot, and maybe to a degree it still is. But because we're doing this in real time, with patients, we often get a capture or a feel for which things are the most prevalent. And there has been this advent, of course, of in vitro sensitivity testing, next generation sequencing, one aspect of things where we can maybe actually test drugs against sort of captured cancer cells in a vitro in petri dish setting to get a signal maybe of which things actually are more effective for the individual. So a blend of maybe theory, of course, but also real world actual tailored data. So it's kind of a, and this is the thing, and Amanda made that point really, really well. Things are always evolving, things are always changing, which is why there needs to be conversation. We don't profess to know everything. It's just that in the moment, at the time, where there's most up-to-date data and feasibility and safety, this is what we're seeing, this is X, Y, and Z. Let's have a conversation about this, and let's empower you to know a bit more about yourself. If doctors want to read into this, they're getting frustrated about a patient, asking them about, ivermectin, mebendazole, whatever it is. Let them look into it. Please. Inspiration to want to pick up a small book that is to the point and data driven and up to date, and then maybe that'll be another asset in this. Message out.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I had something and it's just fallen straight out of my brain. It'll come
You're
back.
going to edit this bit out, right?
No, no, that's brilliant. I'm sure it'll come back to me. But Dr. Harry, you've said there, and you've hinted at it a few times, it's something that enables agency in the patient.
Yeah.
And that's like, I'm a big sees agency kind of guy. I admittedly, my obsession is on the preventative health side. So I want to reach people before they come down with whatever ailment it may be. But I think it's so important to seize agency because we live in a world where, and certainly for me, I grew up in South Africa and then I came across in the UK, did a bunch of traveling in between. But everywhere I went, the medical system is set up such that you're taught almost to by default assume that your health is fine until it's not. And then at the point that it's not, then you have to outsource it to someone else. And if you don't like what someone else said, then you have to find alternate opinions, but you're constantly outsourcing things. There's no advocacy for seizing agency in the traditional medical setting. And I think it's so important to see practitioners like yourself and figures like Amanda, who really have a tremendous reach, talk about taking agency, finding out what you can do, and empowering yourself with knowledge and action to improve your own health outcomes. How have you come about that? So you've come from a traditional sort of medical training background. Talk us through how you went from there to this point where you've now understood that the patient needs agency and advocacy, and we actually have to look at unconventional ways of doing this.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there's it's not a simple answer, and there are many aspects to this. So in training in med school, so I live in Watford, North London, by the Harry Potter Studios. If you ever want to come visit, but I graduated from Imperial College, trained at UCL, University College London, worked at St Bartholomew's Hospital in Barbican, spent some time at the Marsden. So worked with very impressive, consultants and learned a lot about the system of medical oncology. So it's a lot of that basic knowledge. But as a junior doctor, your mission is to embrace the protocols, learn the protocols, essentially become very good at being a cog in the machine of a public sector system, which you don't realize at the time. I ducked out into working in early phase clinical trials, phase 1 and 2 trials in cancer medicine, called Sarah Cannon Research Institute. And my understanding evolved a little bit more. I was working in innovation, and all of a sudden, and even then, you don't realize, you don't think about the pharma thing. You're just like, well, this is fascinating. So somehow allowing patients to access an innovative drug that they may not see in the NHS for another 8 or 9 years. This is immunotherapy, a time of immunotherapy, and lots of exciting drugs at the time. So enthralled by that idea, to the point where I got very spoiled, where I didn't like the idea of returning to the conventional paradigm, and so I was looking for a way out, actually. So I was looking for different ways out, and I happened to land a career, a medical lead role at a clinic called Care Oncology Clinic, where I kind of worked in adjunctive protocols, off-label medicines, and there, over 5 years, that was a crux to me. So I basically got to evolve more because patients were asking me, what about berberine? What about milk thistle? What about vitamin C? And so that I had no real true awareness of. But with my doctor hat on, had to apply some due diligence and do the research, do the reading, look into why, look into the data, observe people, observe their bloods on a regular basis, get a feel for it that way. Learn from integrative professionals, functional practitioners, whatever the label, Amanda essentially, who would teach me about the use of various testing sort of paradigms, of course, like Dutch testing, LifeCode DX, or microbiome testing. Things like, again, no awareness of, right? No real awareness of, but it grew to appreciate. So then I started to think about this and say, look, okay, I'm treating later stage cancer patients, adjunctive protocols. Wouldn't it be great if one day we were able to capture changes in metabolism, changes, dysfunctional issues before the manifestation of disease, which is very much what you were just talking about, Ricky. Wouldn't it be great? So in 50 years' time, that actually we are able to screen in advance or have a structure in the healthcare system where we can do a deeper dive, we can capture, circulating issues, we can then amend the course by actually in the public healthcare system saying, we need to focus a bit more on X, Y, and Z lifestyle. Let's start there. Always there, always there. Cut the smoking. Go for a walk after each main meal. A bit of intermittent fasting. Check your blood sugars. Let's give you Freestyle Libre 2 for free. Let's educate you on the impact of different food types on you. Et cetera, et cetera. Let's watch your BMI. Let's watch your heart blood pressure. Let's watch your heart rate. Address these things early. And I think the GP service, in a way, is trying to do it with the sort of, quota system of checking people's blood pressure once in a while and whatnot. But there's so much more we can do. And just bringing us back to that term metabolic syndrome, which encompasses all the chronic disease states, right? Heart problems, brain problems, inflammation problems, hormone problems, the whole shebang comes under it, right? And we're used to that culture of getting carried away with life, with our financial problems, with our heartache and all that kind of stuff. And then, shit hits the fan, we have a heart attack, and he takes the heart attack to then be preached at to say, hey, you got to cut down the stress on your job, man. You got to go for a bit more of a walk. You got to But we should be doing that with anything and everything. We don't. We should do that with every sort of crossroads of opportunity where there's a spark of inspiration to do better for yourself. But as I was saying, prevention, of course, 100%. We just are terrible at doing that and terrible at picking it out. Why would we ever think of engaging with Amanda or Dr. Harry or anybody else until something prompts the need for that? So that culture needs to change, of course.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that humanity has always been that way, perhaps, but what we've done since the 1700s and with the advent of the Industrial Revolution is we've fundamentally and very, very quickly changed our environment and our lifestyles to introduce biological mismatch. We didn't have that before. Just the struggle of survival was aligned with what our biology expected because it had been the same for eons before. And then in our genius, we come up with clever ways of doing things, but then also in our genius, we decide to use it to pursue convenience, as our convenience is the be all and end all of life, and fundamentally shift ourselves away from our biological requirements to the point where we're now facing all of this non-communicable disease burden and trying to figure out why. Because our lifestyles are fundamentally mismatched, is my opinion, and I'm trying to drive people back towards understanding just from a biology perspective, what is it your body's expecting? What brings out proper results? And then find ways in modern life, because we can't, it's not realistic to suggest we revert back to the Stone Age and that way of life. That's not going to happen. But you can find and use our ingenuity to, rather than pursue convenience above all else, is understand that there's certain things that are perhaps a bit unpleasant at the time. Cold showers, one of them, right? Yeah. No one loves a cold shower. No one gets in there and goes, oh, this is great. It sucks getting a cold shower first thing in the morning, but it yields benefit and you feel great afterwards. You feel almost euphoric afterwards. It's fantastic. Yeah. Get people to understand that embracing sacrifice, embracing a little bit of discomfort in the short term leads to long-term optimization. So yeah, no, I like what you're saying. And then it's come back to me what I wanted to say earlier. I appreciate where you're coming from because I work in new capability introduction and I have for yonks in my 9-to-5 day job. And I've been at the forefront of telecommunications for many, many years now, taking things that have never been done and figuring out how to do them, figuring it out how to make it work. So as a project and program manager, I coordinate all the different teams of engineers and very, very clever people to figure out how to make something work for the first time because there's no blueprint, no one's done it before. And there's a skill set that comes with that through my own health journey, I've become increasingly fascinated with metabolic health. I've sorted myself out, reversed metabolic syndrome, and then got my health back and became absolutely fascinated with this and now want to share that with others. But I've been able to take that skill set of appreciating that the science is not black and white, right? Gone are the days, and I was like this as a child. You grow up and you think the adults in the world have got it all figured out. And you think that, oh, no, they know what they're doing. No one freaking knows what they're doing. It's best guess. And everyone's just taking the best available data at the time and trying to make an educated guess as to what should be done, could be done. And there's a skill to navigating that chaos where you remain teachable and don't become ingrained in dogma so that you can take the emerging science and understand how it relates to what you've already understood or thought you understood and adjust as you move forward. And I've got a tremendous amount of respect for that, because it's not easily done. People don't default to remaining teachable. They tend to latch on to what they've grasped to begin with, and then they double down on that. And so, yeah, I've got a tremendous amount of respect for the way that you've both gone about this, and especially keeping the book as up to date as possible, up to the publication date. Speaking of which, what is the publication date? When does this come out and become available?
Well, so this morning we hit the button this morning my time, we hit the button for publish, and Amazon are going to just do a little review and just make sure they're happy with it. So they've just got to quickly scan through that. So it should be live by Friday, the 21st? I'm just going to check now. Yeah. Friday the 21st, it should be live on Amazon to buy. So there will be a Kindle version, a paperback, and a hardback version. And so that's when it will be live. Yeah.
Awesome. And available internationally, or have you got any zones that you weren't able to publish to?
That I do not know. As far as I can see, it is an international publication. It's primarily on Amazon.com, so it is written in American English. It is primarily written to go into the American marketplace. Actually, most of the Substack followers, the subscribers that I have, are based in the States. So we've kind of angled it because these are the individuals who have shown a particular interest in these repurposed drugs for cancer. So it makes sense to kind of just publish in that way, although it's available across Amazon. So anyone who's got Amazon can get a copy.
Awesome. I love that. So,
yeah,
inspiration. How do you come about this? How do you go from your background and decide, right, let's look at repurposed drugs and how this actually works to adjunct cancer therapies? Like, what does the story look like?
Well, I think sorry, should I'll shoot first. So when I was saying before about all these different I think aspects in my journey, let's use that word again, journey and career path. I mean, so I was born in the UK. My parents are Sri Lankan. So a lot of doctors in the family, particularly back in the village, I guess, Ayurvedic principles, Ayurvedic sort of stuff. So I've just been aware culturally of different things, maybe never embraced it because, again, raised in Western medicine. But when I had the opportunity to maybe mature and think, which I certainly didn't do as a junior doctor, I grew confidence. I think I grew confidence in what I was doing. So in years working in adjunctive protocols and seeing great successes, it spurred me on to want to further that aspect of things. To a certain degree, the eventual awareness of the arrogance and maybe stubborn nature of some of the conventional sort of people I'd worked with in the past also spurred me on. I think when you go beyond the being the student to the teacher and you become maybe more of a teacher, you're kind of less bound by that hierarchical thing that's kind of put on you, particularly in the environment of it being a training doctor. I remember very vividly, it's I don't think I've told you this, Amanda, but when I was starting at Care Oncology Clinic, I had a text from a very prominent consultant oncologist, and he'd had a patient who had been on an integrative protocol, actually nothing to do with me. He'd assumed it was to do with me, and his patient's liver function had gone off. And completely blamed, he thought it would be me or these integrative protocols. And he was sort of saying, oh, this patient was on milk thistle, and that's why the liver function went up. The reality of the story was anti and immunotherapy can cause liver function disturbances, but it was construed in such a way, and the messaging was sort of just like, you're robbing patients in the street, and this sort of arrogant brute-headedness from a very high-ranking official. And it was a game changer for me because one, I had no doubt that it had nothing to do with anything the patient was doing outside, and this is a very controlled, very considered patient. But the letdown was that such a professional was taking such a negative tone. I was worried more about the patient, so if I can hold my own with a doctor, but just sometimes you get this feedback from a patient where a patient's being talked down to or made to feel belittled for their dare to want to do a little bit more reading for themselves, and just that kind of that mess, that vibe that you sometimes pick up that is completely inappropriate and completely disrespectful and unfair. And so one again element to me was very just passionate about what I was doing. I felt very passionate about what I was doing. I was seeing great success. I pride myself in doing this with great safety in mind. Like logistically, the plans are very well considered. Touched by patients. I look at their bloods. I have open channels of communication. I provide material for them to share with their doctors. And thus far, touch wood, there have been no problems. And this is where again, I think it is quite important for what I do with medicines to be very grounded by the conventional principles, to have an aware of the core drugs that they are being given, et cetera, right? And an awareness of how they're broken down, a kind of a method in terms of applying. So I think a mixture of growth, working in central London, having a strong core of training in conventional medicine, bits along the way of an awareness and appreciation of cultural knowledge. I've read a traditional Chinese medicine, lots of different things like that, right? Capturing, being in tune with clinical trials, being in tune with advances. I'm always reading, I'm always trying to keep on top of things. As I said, I'm often being prompted by patients to become more aware of certain things. So all of those aspects, I think, fed into me having the confidence to do what I do and actually launch my own clinic. And the proof is in the pudding. There's a lot of demand, there's a lot of wish and want for patients to do this in a guided way. The patients I will meet will say, look, I could have bought this from India on my own. I could have got this from X, but I wanted to do this with professional advice and oversight. And I think that's the core of so many patients. That's also what hits home to me. They don't want to do things that are crazy sound. They inherently don't want to end up taking 60 different things. They just want some guidance and some support from someone that seems to know what they're doing, and some direction. Rant over. I mean, one of the most common questions I get asked, I'm terrified of eating. What should I be eating? Like, should I just not eat for 7 days? I've heard about doing an extended fast. Should I go ketosis? Should I go low GI? And then, and I'll talk in principles, and then, my brain there is a limit to how much I know. So I will then say, please talk to Amanda King. Please talk to someone that knows a hell of a lot more, because as you know, one size doesn't fit all. That is the general message. Like one size doesn't fit all. Just talk about diet. There are certain cancers where data is prominent. There's a lot of data for it. There's evolving data. We're going to try and be honest about it. But then there's a patient who might be cachexic and have terrible bloods and their album's really low and they're really struggling with chemo side effects, and it may not be appropriate to, right? So this is again, I know my limits and there's stuff that I'm very good at, but again, this is why collaboration is so important and having a unified front where we can provide these forums for patients to ask and engage.
I love that. I mean, and I think that that's why I love working with Harry. This has been such a great collaboration because we do come at this from different original paradigms. You've got the conventional oncology background, and I've got the naturopathic medicine background. But we've both come into this arena with an interest in integrating that and bringing both of us. We've talked about it, separately outside of this, but how important our work is to, we've said it, like we love what we do, and it's so great being able to bring all of this information together to get to give us as good a comprehensive integrated kind of service as possible to people. So it's interesting because I was just thinking when you were talking about how you came to this, and I was thinking, when did I? And I came into this actually like 20 years ago. I was very, very pro medication. I was in the box. I was not thinking outside of the box, really, to be honest. And I was lucky enough to have a series of experiences when it came to things like childbirth, and I was quite I was a big reader, very inquisitive, and one thing led to another, where I actually ended up turning my own health around, and also understanding that actually through a series of events with my children and hospital and things like that, I realized that our bodies were natural healing machines. We were able to do it, but we, sometimes we do need interventions naturopathically and sometimes medical as well. But that's always been it's been a sort of a slower waking up through the last couple of decades, really, and getting to the point where I decided to take naturopathic medicine. And I was just thinking about this one conversation I had on LinkedIn about 3 years ago, and I wrote about, do you know why this is something that's still on there? Do you know why cancer rates are rising? And I had not studied integrative oncology at that time. Yeah. And so I looked into it. It was when Medical News Today announced that there was 1 in 2 people expected to get cancer by 2030. And so it was my most popular post, but for all the wrong reasons. So I wrote down, it's your diet, you're not moving, it's all the stuff we talk about, Harry. You don't have a sense of purpose. You're having inflammation. You're not exercising. You're not sleeping well. All of your pillars of health, Ricky, that are in your book. All of these things, if you don't take care of the prevention, the terrain, as Naisha puts it, then there's going to be a consequence later on. And what happened is it felt like everybody crawled out of the woodwork and said, who are you? Stay in your lane. How dare you talk about cancer? You have no proof. I might post this back up now. And I had hundreds of responses on that post saying, how dare you? You don't know that cancer's random, it's genetic, etc. And so I know. And in that post, I decided that I would nicely go into the research at that time. It really piqued an interest for me. And I did my diligence. I don't normally have the time to do this, but at that time, 3 years ago, I did, and I wanted to. And I went into research and attached the data to each individual one. So it became a very, very big post with a lot of comments and things like that. But it really taught me something early on in my naturopathic, in my natural medicine career, that we have this kind of, we're in this world where there's this lack of wanting to integrate the two, and where we've got people like Harry, who are brilliant mind, open-minded, interested, curious, bringing all of that background of knowledge and then all of the integration and the intellectual humility that comes with it. This is as far as I'm concerned, that's the pinnacle. Nobody knows everything, so we're bringing the best of what we've got together right now. Yeah. And that's my speech.
That story makes me smile and chuckle because I know exactly what you're talking about. People get upset with me all the time. But I suppose what we're starting to see, and it's good to see it, is more and more people wake up to the fact that whilst there's genetic components that predispose you to certain things, for sure, no debates about that.
Yeah.
The expression of those genes, whether they're on or off, is largely dictated by your lifestyle and environment. And what that means is you can, if you're aware of it, you can take steps to align your lifestyle and environment such that you mitigate risk. You can't guarantee nothing will ever happen, but that's life. You can't guarantee anything. You're not even guaranteed tomorrow. But what you can do is you can set up your life in such a way that you're giving yourself the best possible platform. And that, it comes back to the agency thing. I think the more people can seize agency over their own health, the better. And loving the work that you guys are doing. Mindful that we're starting to see a lot of sort of key players come up in this. I started to get involved in the metabolic theory of cancer from Dr. Thomas Seyfried many years ago. Was completely fascinated by what he was talking about, because both my father and my grandfather are prostate cancer survivors, and was like, okay, chances are I've got a pretty good predisposition there. So let me understand from a lifestyle point of view, like what can I do to minimize my own risk? And so I've started digging into that and trying to understand things. And that's where I came across the fact that not all cancers have the same metabolism, and all cancers are sort of triggered by the same thing. There's variation there. So it may be the case that keto is appropriate for one person and their particular type of cancer, but I think some of the breast cancers actually feed on fat more than they do on glucose. And so maybe there's a little bit of variation there, and you kind of need to get into the specifics. And that brings me to the genetic sequencing that you've been talking about. what does that world look like, and how is that unpacking? Because that, I think that's fascinating.
Ideal.
Do we go much? Yeah. So basically, yeah. So there's next generation sequencing, which is referred to. I mean, there's often companies aware of Caris, Exacta, Guardant 360, so tissue liquid biopsies of blood samples where one can maybe try and seek mutational drivers of the cancer. The hope being, if there is something captured, it might be the route to accessing a targeted some sort that might be available on the NHS, or maybe a clinical trial that might again help, focus on said captured mutation. It isn't always a Hail Mary. These tests don't always find something. So if not sanctioned by the NHS or a clinical trial, it can be, quite expensive, of course, for a patient to self-fund doing such a test in the realms of the thousands. This in vitro sensitivity testing thing, I think a lot of functional practitioners, maybe nutritionists in the day would speak of RGCC, the Greek test. More recently, there's been more of a conversation around Datar's chemo scale testing service. There's a movement, there's another company called Astron who are working on AI aspects here, using AI. So again, important, prevalent term. How can we use AI to, again, find pairings between the mutational findings and relevant non-oncology options? So there is more now available to kind of, again, capture these nuanced sort of strings of information about the individual cancers. Amanda could go in a bit more depth about obviously the environment and other tests as well to again prime the body to make it less hospitable for cancer too. One day, if AI goes the way it should, we'll have access to all this information. Imagine just hand in a blood sample or a poo sample and then have an AI churn out within a week of all of this information. So we're not there yet, but at the moment, in terms of private sector, there are tests whereby we can maybe do a deeper dive. There are further tests that we can do, like circulating tumor cell counts as well for monitoring microscopic disease load. Lots of research going to minimal residual disease studies, so ways to capture cancer on a microscopic level in the surveillance period, as opposed to relying fully on just CT scans and radiation exposure via said modalities. So yes, to that point, at the moment, I'm certainly via Lucio Health using Datar's chemo scale, Exacta, Astron Health's AI tool outputs to try and again get as much information together, collate it together, and then churn out a plan for the individual based on their circumstance.
Awesome.
Yeah, those tests are absolutely amazing. And from a functional medicine point of view, when I work with patients, I will go through their blood results every single month. So we're keeping on top of that. So you can get this information, as Harry was mentioning, which is about the tumour and the cancer, and it's invaluable information often. And the way that I work is then kind of much more, how is the shifting landscape? How is it evolving? What's changing? Are you using up a lot of, even down to the basics of methylation? Are you using up a lot of methyl factors? Do you need more support? Are you running out of the vitamins and minerals that you need? Is your thyroid under stress? And even then down to diet as well. How are people staying on top? It can be difficult. I mean, not as difficult as having to go through some of the conventional treatments and some of the drugs that are out there, but it still can be very difficult to do a massive change over to a ketogenic diet for some people. So having the right kind of information, the tools, the right kind of support, and the ongoing relationship, I suppose I have a good relationship with my clients, and I speak with them regularly, and it's important, it's important that I'm able to maintain that relationship and keep a track of things, and it's beneficial for everybody. So there's a lot going on. And in terms of testing, for functional testing, I was going to mention that you're right, there is the Dutch testing, and then with some individuals, gut testing is important. With other individuals, where I'm doing quite a lot of mold mycotoxin tests, and we're seeing quite a lot of interesting results in that area, because we're looking at, in my work in naturopathy, we're looking for root cause as much as possible, so addressing those pillars. But we really would like to know, when you're having having conventional treatment that is going to, kill the rapidly dividing daughter cells, hopefully with some off-label drug interventions, killing the stem cells too and weakening them. But what are you doing about the potential drivers? Are you going to move away from the big substation you live next door to? Are you going to stop? Are you going to be able to get away from the area that you're inhaling pesticides around, or are you able to change the moldy environment you're in? I mean, these are all environmental things, but we can't say for certain that that would be the trigger or the driver. But wherever we know that there are risk factors, we would try to eliminate them. Yeah.
Well, it has to be multifactorial, logically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There's loads of things that have come together to create an environment in which negative outcomes are more likely than not. So yeah, it makes complete sense to me, at least, that you would want to look at it from a root cause perspective and try and figure out what factors can I change to not just mitigate this ever happening again, but also to give me the best chance of recovery if I'm already in this battle and trying to find my way through it.
And that's another a good mantra is test, don't guess, isn't it? Like, it's I mean, the other things, I mean, obviously, Amanda and I do metabolic bloods, insulin resistance, HOMA-IR, fasting glucose, fasting insulin, HbA1c, cholesterol profile, lactate.
Yeah,
I love that because
exactly.
it makes sense that the sort of the existing metabolic environment of the individual would have an impact on what the route forward is. So if you've got someone who's in relatively good health, the approach, I imagine, would differ slightly from someone who is in terrible health to start with, because their system would be far more compromised.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Affect what drugs you can use off label and then what the approach would be. So yeah, that makes complete sense. I like that.
Yeah, it's so important to remember that. I mean, I'm seeing, I'm sure you are as well, Harry. We're seeing universal protocols being put out across the internet, and like, this is this person's protocol, this is that, and then you get the protocol and you follow the protocol, but it isn't right for everybody. I see things that's a good thing for breast cancer, but it's not right for thyroid cancer, and and did anybody check your liver function when they prescribed or told you to go and get this amount of fenbendazole or something like that? So, if you're going to do, if you can work with a practitioner, then you'll get a bespoke, personalized protocol that is tailored to exactly the data that we're able to get, and what that is the gold standard. It's got to be tailored to you.
Yeah, no, I like that. From a preventative lifestyle perspective, you can be a little bit more generic in that human biology is more similar than it is different, and therefore you can label exercise, nutrition, sleep, light exposure patterns, stuff like that into general terms of what works, what doesn't. But when you're dealing with someone who is already sick and now you need to help them plot the path to recovery, it makes sense that you would want to get as specific as possible and not just hope on generic stuff. And we now live in the age where stuff like this has become increasingly accessible, which is awesome. 10, 15 years ago, this was all dreamers. It wasn't in the realm of reality just yet. So it's exciting times. Okay, so the book is out potentially this Friday. This episode will go live next week, Monday. So the book will be out and available on Amazon by the time. What are your closing thoughts, closing messages? If there's something that you'd like people to take away from the episode, what is the thing that you want to resonate with them?
Just hopefully we don't come across as intimidating. This is about a journey. It's about providing what we like to do. We're very much about providing a forum where people can just be open to listen. And we do what we can to empower, inform, support. This doesn't need to be done alone. There are people such as ourselves that are very much about you as an individual, as a whole. This is this doesn't need to be as complex and as I did a PhD in this. I still don't get it. There's so much information out there. It's so overwhelming. Just please don't feel you need to do this yourself by yourself. And, there are these. We hope for our book to be a guide to help, just to help better inform. But we're here, obviously, as individuals, as people, as human beings, with the experience that we've detailed in this talk today, just to help support you further in your quest to do more for yourselves. So please do hit us up, get in touch, and we'd be more than willing to help in any way we can.
Yeah, I mean, I love that, and I agree. I would love for the take-home message to be that, that you have got the power to change the situation, and there are steps that you can take. You don't have to be on a what would you call it, a carousel, or I think there's a word I'm looking for that I'm missing. You don't. Conveyor belt. Thank you. That was what I was looking for. Yeah, you don't. So exactly. It's just a message of empowerment. This is one piece of information in the whole thing. And as Ricky said, the blueprint for human health, it is broadly the same. And just assemble your team around you. Don't be scared of asking questions. Advocate for yourself. And yeah, it's just a message of empowerment, really.
That's awesome. Well, Amanda, Dr. Harry, thank you very much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. I wish you every success with the book. I hope that it is wildly successful across many domains. And yeah, keep up the good work. It's inspirational and it's much needed.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time, everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching the episode. I hope that you found the conversation meaningful and informative, and I hope that it has empowered you with some tools and insights that you can take to tweak and improve your own lifestyle approach in pursuit of optimal metabolic health outcomes. If you've enjoyed the episode, and if you're enjoying the podcast, I'd like you to do me the kindness of please subscribing to the channel, giving it a like, maybe even giving it a share. Help to raise awareness and get the podcast in front of as many viewers as possible, because it is my passion to try and help as many people as possible to understand more of the nuance around metabolic health and how to tweak their lifestyle in pursuit of optimal outcomes. Also, if you have any constructive feedback, things that you think I could improve on, any critiques, any criticisms, please do feed them back. I give you my solemn word that I will take them seriously, and I will, to the best of my ability, work to improve and to give you a more refined and more targeted product as a result of your feedback. So I will take it seriously, and I'll do what I can to improve the show. But again, thank you very much for watching. Keep thriving.